Good evening and welcome to the Sensory Spotlight News Report. I'm your host, Corey Keystrow-Mills, Exhibits Coordinator at Gumbo Limbo Nature Center. Today we will be asking the hard questions and bringing you the reporting you rely on as we explore the role of the senses in the ever-changing field of environmental interpretation. Coming to you live from Gumbo Limbo Nature Center in Boca Raton, Florida, your source of environmental news and multisensory reporting. This is Sensory Spotlight News Report. We start this morning with our top headlines, the senses. At the most basic level, the senses are the way all living things recognize and interact with the world around them. In humans, we most commonly break these senses into 5 simple categories: sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing. However, there are many other sensory experiences like equilibrium, the sense of balance and movement, or kinesthetics, the sense of one's own body moving through space. Together, the senses contribute to our understanding and response to the external world. Each of the senses responds to specific stimuli, and the way our bodies react are both unique at the biological level and the individual level. With more on the role of the senses in program development, we now go to our science educator, Christy Collins, who is in the field.
Thanks, Corey. Interpretive programs that pull on a variety of sensory experiences are by nature more accessible, inclusive, and impactful. We know from countless studies that individuals have preferences for learning that prioritizes certain sensory experiences over others. For example, some guests may prefer to be told about the mangrove environment. Others may prefer to see an illustration, while a third may get the most from a knee-deep experience. We also know not all people have the same sensory range, which affect program impact at the personal level. A super sniffer may be able to detect the ingredients in a Cabernet. Toasted blackberry. But the same person could be put off by the strong, unpleasant scent of mangrove muck. Sulfur. A visitor with a visual impairment may benefit more by being handed a propagle rather than a photograph. And many guests, regardless of their hearing, benefit from captions. Developing programs that consider the wide range of sensory experiences offer opportunities for guests with unique sensory preferences and abilities to have productive and well-rounded experiences. Corey, back to you.
Thank you, Christy, for that wonderful reporting. It is always important when developing interpretive programs, media, or exhibitions to consider the audience's needs and their diverse range of sensory preferences and abilities. We interrupt our usually scheduled program to discuss the role COVID-19 has played on environmental interpretation. Gumbo Limbo Nature Center, along with many other community education centers, closed to the public in March 2020. All in-person programs were canceled, and in our specific case, the entire center, including the majority of the grounds, remained closed to the public. Like many of our sister facilities, not only nature centers, but museums and discovery centers, we have had to move all public engagement to a virtual or socially distanced format. These virtual programs by necessity tend to rely overly on audio and visual production and eliminate other avenues of sensory discovery. We needed to adjust our use of sensory engagement to develop inclusive and impactful programming for a hands-off world. Picking up where we left off, let us now turn to our very own Megan Berry with this weekend's Sensory Weather Report. To you, Megan.
Thanks, Corey. We are looking at perfect conditions to hear and smell this weekend. First, let's take a look at our 5-day sensory forecast. To start off, perfect conditions for seeing early week. Look at that, a 20/20 vision forecasted. Our early week touch, though, might be felt with a little high pressure, so prepare to really feel that one. Careful not to burn yourself midweek. Taste is expected to be a bit hot for the region. But look at that, beautiful opportunities to hear and smell to finish off this sensory experience. Now at this moment, sound waves are being heard in the ears, light waves are bouncing into the eyes, and maybe it was a pad thai we had for lunch, but there are some volatile chemicals descending into the nose region. Now, of course, these are some of the body's more obvious senses when you account for the differences between temperature, pressure, and pain sensors. Some scientists have counted over 20 different senses. Out here on the hearing front, sound waves enter through the ear and strike against the eardrum. Now these sound waves are broken up into 3 parts: volume, rhythm, and pitch. Each part of the sound is converted into electrical sparks. These spark travels around the south to the back of the head, where they join the brainstem, the superhighway of the nervous system. Here, sounds from the left and right ear collide. Differences in volume help determine the direction of the sound. Then the sparks hit the thalamus. Imagine the traffic circle of the brain. This is where the information from all over the body are directed towards the brain for processing. From the thalamus, the sparks travel to the auditory complex just behind the temples of your head. Here, sounds are organized and identified. From there, many parts of your brain may light up, depending on if you are being spoken to, listening to music, or trying to imagine a scene. The sense of smell, however, takes an interesting shortcut. It starts with chemicals in the air that enter our nasal passage. On the roof of our nasal cavity, we have thousands of neurons. Now, each neuron is designed to respond to one specific chemical smell, and when our olfactory receptors detect that chemical, they shoot an electric spark not to the brainstem superhighway, but directly up to the olfactory bulb at the base of the brain. These neurons have direct access to your brain, so there are no detours here. The olfactory bulb is part of the limbic system. This is where memories and emotions are processed. From there, the sparks travel to the thalamus, the traffic circle of the brain, onto higher level processing and response. This is why I can remember a smell before I know exactly what it is. Your body is designed to respond to potentially dangerous smells instinctively, like spitting out poisonous or spoiled foods. So it is tied to the fight or flight part of the brain. All right, back to you, Corey. We'll smell you later.
Very interesting, Megan. I always remember the smell of sour milk. Ugh, that was a bad oversight before a vacation. On the topic of smells, we now turn to our resident food expert, Marty Raccoon, for an up-close sniff. Oh, thanks, Corey. You know, as a raccoon, I rely less on my eyes, more on my nose and my hands to interact with the world around me, which means I think a lot about stink. You know, some scents are deeply tied to memory, emotions, and age. Adults are more likely to associate a scent with memories of their own, which can be used to lead group discussions or even trigger emotional responses among your participants. Younger individuals, however, are more likely to develop new scent memories with the introduction of a novel scent. I've invited my niece Mitzi here to represent the youth.
Well,
let us start with something new. Are you ready?
yes.
All right. Here. I found it. All right, I think you'll like this one. What does it smell like?
It smells like food. I like food smells. What is it?
This is tomato sauce. It's used in a lot of Italian cooking, which means it's imported. How does this smell make you feel?
Hungry?
To me, it reminds me of Papa Lasagna's, the Italian restaurant that used to be just down the street. They had the best dumpsters. Anyway, but as a young sniffer, you probably don't have that scent memory. Papa Lasagna's has been closed for years. Well, but maybe in the future, this scent will help remind you of the time you came on TV with me, your favorite uncle, America's favorite raccoon anchor.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, when working with smells, it's always important to consider the age of the individual. What memories might smell bring, and how can you use that to deliver your message? Are you trying to create something new? Are you trying to build on someone else's pre-existing experiences? The fun trick to smells is also the relationship with our emotions.
You mean like how flowers smell happy and skunks smell mean?
Yes, exactly. All right, let's put this to the test. Go ahead and cover your eyes. I have something I want you to sniff, and I want you to tell me what you think it is and how you feel about it. Are you ready?
Sure.
Here's your hand. There you go.
Ew, gross. What is it?
That's for you to answer. What do you think it is?
Well, I don't know. I guess it kind of smells familiar, but I don't like it.
Okay, open your eyes.
Oh, it's a snail. Yum.
Yum.
I love snails. Why did it smell so gross before?
Well, you see, we rely on all of our senses together. By limiting what you can see or being in an unfamiliar environment, even something familiar can be off-putting if you can't tell what it is. Context helps shed light on positive experiences, while lack of context can make an experience somewhat unsettling or even exciting. Both are important tools when designing a program.
Whoa, I just realized that I like the smell of the tomato sauce, but not the snail. And even though I eat snails all the time, that's so weird.
The brain can do some funny things, so in recap, all the senses, but particularly smell, are linked to memory and emotions, and depending on how old one is, or how the experience is contextualized, you can help guide those memories and emotions in your programs. That's all for us, Corey. Back to you. Thank you, Marty and young Mitzi, for that interesting and somewhat unsettling dive into the world of smells. Of course, with social distancing, facial covering, and other post-COVID changes to program design, scent and focused breathing as an interpretive tool is under threat. However, now more than ever, we are aware of the importance and disparity that comes along with access to open spaces and clean air. We need to consider how important mindful breathing, safe access to fresh air, and even the odd smelly surprise has become to the average visitor. Next, let us tune into the world of sound. As we have transitioned to distance learning and virtual platforms, it has become more important than ever to consider the scope, challenges, and advantages of this new limited contact format. To bring this discussion into key, I would like to introduce our next guest, an expert in all things auditory, Margot Mockingbird. Welcome, and thank you for joining us, Margot.
Good morning, good morning.
Tell us, Margot, what should we know when it comes to using sounds in programs?
Well, first of all, Corey, please excuse the nest. I haven't had time to tidy it up. But back to your point. All sounds break down to the basic elements of volume, pitch, and rhythm. Each has its uses, but my favorite, of course, is rhythm. We use rhythms to memorize long strings of information, like the lyrics to our favorite songs. Let it go, let it go. Rhythms also maintain focus, developing a consistent pace with regular short sentences. And an easy cadence can also help audiences stay focused. Oh, and a mnemonic. I love a good mnemonic. This is when we use keywords and rhythm to encode information. For example, a favorite bird besides the mockingbird. Like, say, a cardinal. What cheer, what cheer. We can recall her song by adding some clever words. What cheer, what cheer. This can help us to identify the bird call even if we haven't seen or heard her for ourselves.
Ah, yes, I have one of those for the barred owl. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?
Precisely. If you want to help someone remember information, don't be afraid to use melody, rhymes, or music. This will all contribute to a robust sensory experience.
Wonderful. Thank you, Margot.
Thank you.
Not only do sounds offer unique ways to engage with an audience, it is important to recognize the value of descriptive language. We know our audiences come to us with a variety of sensory strengths, weaknesses, and preferences. It is important to remember the power of imagination. Our brains will use whatever information is presented and contextualize it in a way that makes sense to our own unique experiences and preferences. As interpreters, we can help by digging into our descriptive lexicon. Use sensory terms to describe what people cannot see through a screen. How does it feel, smell, sound? Provide your audience with the sensory cues they are missing. Alternatively, consider ways to equip your audience to go out into the field and have a socially distanced but meaningful sensory experience for their own. For a closer look, let's join our nature correspondent in the field, Christy.
Thanks, Corey. I'm in the wild where I have spotted a Homo sapien exhibiting interesting behavior. Common name human appears to be meditating, taking deep breaths, practicing mindfulness on the Nature Center's boardwalk. By focusing on her senses, she will develop a more complex memory trace that can be used to recall this experience in the future. As an adult human, we can assume she brings with her a complex array of memories and emotions that will be triggered through focused sensory experience. This type of mindfulness program may be best presented by asking visitors to relate personal life experiences to the current context.
Christy,
Oh, shoot.
is that you?
She spotted us. Let's
Why are
go.
you filling our mindfulness book?
It appears we have lost our connection with Christy. Hope she hasn't created any unpleasant experiences for herself. Can someone please go call legal? To recap, senses are the foundation of our experiences in the world. Each has unique attributes and qualities that can be used by interpreters to make it more inclusive, robust programs, media, and exhibits. The sense of smell has a strong and direct link to both emotions and memory. These links are developed over time, meaning older audiences will bring their own personal experiences to the fore, while younger audiences are more likely to develop new scent-based memories. Further, audience response to scents in programs is highly dependent on context. By introducing or explaining a scent, generally it becomes more pleasant, while even a familiar scent can be unpleasant when taken out of context. The relationship between pleasantness and unpleasantness builds into the overall emotional context of the experience. Tuning back to the audio portion of our presentation, sounds at their most basic level are composed of volume, pitch, and rhythm. Each of these elements should be considered when developing programming that uses audio. Developing rhythm and cadence in a presentation, or the inclusion of musical elements, helps maintain focus. By incorporating mnemonic devices, complex information can be encoded for easier recall in the future. Do you remember the call of the barred owl? Finally, in an increasingly hands-off world, we need to consider how to best equip our audiences to have these robust multisensory experiences, be it providing them with the tools to explore the world at a social distance, or by providing thick description of the experience and drawing on the audience's imagination. And that brings us to the end of today's presentation. Thank you for joining us this evening. It has been a pleasure.
Let's taste this beet juice. Warm beet juice.